Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at another action figure vehicle, and this is Obi-Wan Kenobi's Jedi Starfighter as it appears in episode 2. And the interesting thing about this Starfighter is that it only appears in that particular movie, and we follow Obi-Wan Kenobi as he's trying to investigate where Jango Fett came from. So we see him take off from Coruscant to Kamino. And on Kamino, he discovers that a clone army is being created for the Republic. And he has a confrontation with Jango Fett on that planet. Jango escapes, but Obi-Wan Kenobi is able to track Jango all the way to Geonosis. They have a sort of space battle in an asteroid field, which Obi-Wan Kenobi is able to evade Jango Fett. Eventually, he lands on Geonosis. And after that, we don't really see too much of the spaceship because Obi-Wan Kenobi gets captured, and then presumably the spaceship either gets destroyed or it was taken captive by the Geonosians. So that's pretty much all the appearance of this ship in the movie, although there are a lot of these types of ships that appear in Clone Wars, various versions of Clone Wars. So this is sort of the standard Jedi fighter that's used during that time period. And overall, I'm very excited to have this in my collection and to show it to you today. In terms of the design of this, I think they did a fantastic job on this. The idea when they did episode 2 was that they're going to design the spaceships to sort of resemble the overall shape of the Star Destroyer as it appears in the original trilogy. So they designed a fighter that had the same overall profile as a Star Destroyer, as a sort of precursor of that design aesthetic prior to when the Empire takes over the Republic. So that's kind of a cool throwback, and I think they did a really fantastic job. The only thing I didn't really like about the design is they sort of cheated in terms of how they did the R2 unit, because presumably a full-size R2 unit would not be able to fit in this wing. The body, there's just no room for it. So in terms of the overall design, that's the only part of it that I didn't like. But in terms of the overall shape and profile of it, and the design, I think they did a really good job. And I think Hasbro did a pretty good job in terms of rendering this out as an action figure vehicle as well. As you can see, it contains just one landing strut, and that kind of folds back in when it's in flight mode. There's also several other features that are included with this. As you can see, there's this green button right here. And when you press that button, two things essentially happen. The wings that are on the sides open up, and these two sides actually fly off. So it really transforms the overall look of the ship. So I'll go ahead and push that button to show you what happens. So as you can see, the two sides fly off, and then these wings deploy. And it's interesting because the design of the Jedi Starfighter that they did for episode 3 actually has a similar kind of wing configuration. So I don't know which came first in terms of this particular wing deployment, whether it was Hasbro that invented it or if it was Lucasfilm that actually had this in mind. But either way, it eventually became an aspect of the Jedi Starfighter as it appears in episode 3. So, and then there's one other feature, basically, once you have it deployed in this particular configuration, there's some launching missiles as well. So the buttons for those are right here. So you just press the button and you can see that missile flies out, and then there's one on this side as well. But I also want to show you some of the other features in terms of how the cockpit opens and how it can accommodate this Obi-Wan Kenobi action figure. So let's take a look at that. So in terms of the cockpit, basically this canopy just opens up this way, and that allows you access to this compartment. And as you can see, this particular action figure was designed specifically for this vehicle. I believe I bought it separately though. There were two versions of this vehicle. One came with a figure, and I think that might have been a KB Toys exclusive. And then this other one was basically sold on its own separately, and then you had to buy the figure separately. So I believe I did the version where I bought the vehicle and the figure as two different elements. But you can see what the figure looks like. As you can see, Obi-Wan Kenobi has the headset as he appears in the movie. And also this cloth cloak makes it very easy for him to be removed and sit in the cockpit without having to remove his cloak. So that's kind of a nice feature. Oftentimes with figures with vinyl cloaks, you end up having to remove the cloak in order to put them in a vehicle. Whereas in this case, because it's all done with cloth, you can leave the cloak on and he fits just fine in the vehicle. There's not a ton of articulation on this particular figure. There's some rotation at the wrist, also a rotation at the elbow. I believe he can extend out a little bit as well. So in terms of the way they were doing articulation on action figures at this time, many of them did not have a ton of articulation. So it wasn't until later on, where they would start expanding the amount of articulation on action figures where it is today, like with the vintage collection, where you have figures with lots and lots of articulation and lots of ability to put it in different positions. But I do enjoy this figure. I think it looks really cool. I think they did a good job on the head sculpt and everything like that. And it fits perfectly in the cockpit too. And I can show you some of the detail of the cockpit as well. As you can see, there's some display screens up here. And also this part moves back and forth, that part above his head. And there's also some stickers and details and so forth around the cockpit. Not too much, but it's kind of nice because they didn't clutter it up with too much that gets in the way of getting the action figure in and out of there. So that's pretty cool. And the canopy closes down like that. And the R2 unit's head spins back and forth like this. But again, it's not a full R2 unit. Obviously, there's no room for one there. So it's really just the head of the R2 unit. There's also this little transmission dish that rotates back and forth. And I believe it came with a separate stand that you could put this dish on. And I have that somewhere in my collection, but I wasn't able to find it. It's not a particularly useful accessory unless you really want to detach this part from the ship. So I'm not too surprised that I don't really have it sitting around too much. It's probably in a box of other kind of useless accessories that I just sort of stowed away somewhere. But in terms of all the detail on this, I think it looks fantastic. Love all the detail here in the back. And here's what the bottom of the ship looks like. So very interesting ship. And I'm kind of sad that Hasbro doesn't seem to want to make action figure vehicles like this very much anymore. But they do exist on the secondary market. So if you're interested in picking up a vehicle for Obi-Wan Kenobi to fly around in from the time period of the Clone Wars, this one is available. So I would highly recommend picking it up. It might cost you quite a bit. At the time when I bought this, I'm guessing it was around $30, something like that at retail. But nowadays, you might have to pay considerably more than that because finding them in good condition with all the various parts intact can be somewhat difficult. That's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more reviews of action figure vehicles in the future, think about subscribing to the channel because I will be covering a lot more of this kind of thing in future videos. Until next time, I hope you're having a great day and may the Force be with you. Thanks for watching.